So welcome back to another part of our series about becoming a self-employed agent. If you haven't watched any of these episodes so far, myself and Ian are bringing in avocado partners to hear their unique aspects on the pros and cons of having gone self-employed. Today I'm joined by Matt Barrell, part of Matt and Matt, who work across the Wokingham area in Berkshire. Matt joined Avocado around about 2.5 years ago, initially on his own, and then joined forces with Matt Pulford, who we'll hear from in another video, to complete a duo in the Wokingham area. So thanks for joining me, Matt.
Good to be here.
Appreciate you coming in and having a check out of our new studio. First question that we're asking people, and that's a really important one, is why did you take the risk and what pushed you to go self-employed as an estate agent?
I think for me, this was at a time where I didn't feel like I had a lot to lose. And I felt like in terms of progressing in the estate agency business, it just felt like something I was going to have to do sooner or later. So it was the time to make the jump.
When you say not a lot to lose,
I didn't have a load of payments, I suppose, to put it bluntly. I didn't have a load of payments. I didn't have, I'm a dad now. I wasn't a dad then. I felt like there was an opportunity when we started talking. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? There's never going to be a better time than when I started to get started. And it was a leap of faith, as it is for everyone who gets started. It's a leap of faith. You don't know what you're getting into. The term business owner sounds very intimidating and scary before you're in it. And then, like with most things in life, you get in it and you figure it out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And from the point of view of the financial pressures, doing it when you're, in inverted commas, young, free and single, or in a relationship as you were, it does take the pressure off, because I guess you can afford to take risks at a younger age. Financially, from the point of view of property buying and personally, I would always take a bigger risk in my 20s than I did in my late 30s and early 40s, because I only had myself to think about. And my opinion was, well, if it all blows up in my face, I can make this back in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the worst that can happen?
So I remember I read £10,291 was the amount of money I had set to one side. And it was like, well, I could burn through that in 6 months. And if it doesn't work out, I've lost that money. But I could live with that.
Yeah.
And it felt like quite a safe. I think I was fortunate to be in that position and being able to say, okay, let's give it a go. But for me, that was it really. And I took that step 2.5 years ago and haven't really looked back.
So you said running a business sounds intimidating, being a business owner. What's the hardest part of doing it all for yourself?
I find the hardest part, I'm lucky now to have Matt, and we make a great team. You have to wear a lot of hats in this job, as you know, and I struggle with that. I struggle with having my accounting hat on when I need to speak to my accountant and understand stuff, then to have the business operations stuff, which is what I feel like I'm naturally quite good at. You've got to do that, but then you've also got to think about the marketing. You've got to think about what are you going to be spending next year, and there's all of these different hats you have to wear. And I suppose now we're in a stage of kind of refining and fine-tuning, and once you've got through a couple of years, I find now I'm better at planning and tweaking as I go.
Yeah, I think once you've got 1 or 2 years under your belt, it's pretty much everything that comes up you will have done before.
Yeah.
Or you will have made the mistakes and learnt from it in previous quarters or previous annual returns or whatever it is. And I agree, it's keeping the plate spinning, because you want to still be doing your job, but you feel like you're being pulled from pillar to post by those people who all want a little bit of your time.
That's it. And I think that's a key distinction with what we're doing as business owners. We are business owners, but we're really agents, first and foremost.
Yeah.
nothing else works if we're not agents first and foremost. So
Yeah, there's no business to own.
yeah, there's no business
If you're not doing any agency.
so you could be as fancy as you like with
Yeah.
your accountant and your whatever, but if you're not out there selling houses, then you don't have a business. So I'm much more conscious now of being like, my job is to sell homes, and the business stuff I'll refine as we go along.
Outsourcing is the key.
Yeah, that's a new word in my vocabulary, but yeah, one I'm looking forward to using more.
Single moments. What's the biggest, best, well, I guess positive and negative, biggest single moments that you've had in the 2.5 years of working for yourself? And how does it hit you when it's you rather than you working for a business?
Yeah, it hits me. It's more rewarding. You feel it. You're with this business. I feel like we're really in it with our clients. We're on that journey with them, and we're literally not paid unless they're moved. In terms of big moments, I mean, the first move, the first completion, the first time you're handing over the keys, and then getting that commission check. I'll always remember that.
There's something about estate. You'll never forget the address. You'll never forget what you sold it for, who you sold it for, and what the amount that you got for it.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember the solicitors they used. I remember everything about that transaction. So handing over that key was really special. And I remember my first deal, I had to take apart a wardrobe in the seller's house. You know how these situations come around.
The amount of houses I've vacuumed is unreal. Yeah.
And I remember that moment being like, I'm taking this wardrobe down, and it's an IKEA flat pack, awkward one, and it's a nightmare, but I know I'm going to be paid to it. So that was a special moment.
Yeah.
And getting through the first year was a big one. Looking back after the first year and saying, well, okay, I took that leap at the start, and actually I'm going to be able to go into year 2 and not have to go back to a job.
Yeah, I mean, the stats that people produce on how many businesses don't survive the first year, and then on to the next surviving 3 years is something, I don't know, 8-9 out of 10 businesses don't survive past those numbers, which is mind blowing. So it's sometimes hard to give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah, and
just for getting through it.
Well, we're lucky to have the support of a great brand with us, so I think our business success rates are much higher.
They are.
The average. But it's also hard to know. I found it was hard to figure out what does a good year look like, and so I think that's for anyone who wants to come into this. You need to figure out where are your expectations set, because that will have a big impact on whether you look back at it as a failure or a success. It's largely to do with what expectations you set yourself.
And that's financially, that's time wise. There's a few different ways that you can measure that, not just talking like pure turnover or number of houses sold. It's how do I define my success? Is can I pick the kids up from school? Can I do this? Can I do that? Or am I working 24 hours a day to earn £4 an hour? When I divide it down, it's really, really difficult to break down. So it's worth, unless you write those things down at the start of the year, you're never going to achieve them. If you write them down, at least you've got a good chance of getting somewhere close.
Yeah, exactly. I want to know what you're aiming towards.
Which you perfectly segued me to what I want to talk about next, which is long-term planning. Running a self-employed estate agency business, the detractors, I guess, the people who poo-poo it on social media will say you're not building an asset for yourself. So I'm keen to know financially in the long term why you're doing it and what your plans are. How are you going to make this work for you and your family over a long period?
For me, the planning for that is, I'm not here to build a business which I'm going to sell on in 10 years. And I know that. And I'm totally okay with that. And I'm very, very happy running my business, which takes my time, and building that up and rewards me in the short term and medium term here. But what's great about, I think, the self-employed movement in the UK is actually, I guess, you thinking about what you can do. And actually business ownership it stops being this scary term and
Yep.
this thing which is only for those people over there. And actually, maybe my business in its current form isn't a saleable asset in 5 years, but maybe I'm now okay with doing something else which maybe is a saleable asset in 15 years.
I think that's a great point. Once you've learnt to market something, whether you're marketing or generating leads to come into your estate agency business, or doing your meeting with your accountant over tax returns, you can market any business. In effect, and that's the principle of it. And what people forget, I think, is running a business is it's kind of marketing heavy. You do a lot more marketing than you do doing. Because if you're not marketing your business, you can't do anything.
And the marketing is the key bit. And I think you and Ian, credit to you for really driving that message home to everyone in the brands. And it took me a while to clock on that, there's a correlation between me spending money on marketing and how busy I am.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. And I think you have to be in it to understand that correlation.
Yeah.
So, for us, we spend a lot more on marketing. That's for our brand. That's so people get to know us. And maybe that doesn't directly relate to a saleable asset in 5 years, but we're okay with that. Should you only start a business to sell it? I would say no. You should do it.
If you enjoy what you do and the profits are reinvested sensibly, because we all know about the time benefits from the point of view of flexibility. We all know about the way dividends are working, but then how you're investing your money when it comes to it at the end of the year is really important as well, because people may say, well, you can't sell your self-employed business for £250,000 in 5 years' time, but you might have put £250,000 profit into buy-to-let property or pension or something like that to have that asset when it comes down to it. Now you're in a unique position, maybe not unique, but relatively unique position, that you've worked employed in an office for an estate agency, you've worked as an online agent, and you've worked as a self-employed agent.
Mm-hmm.
So you've seen the three sides of the coin. Could they be anything three-sided? Yes. The three sides of the triangle of what you can do in estate agency. What advice would you give someone who is not a self-employed agent but is watching these videos thinking, I'd love to do it, but I'm on the fence?
I think sooner or later you'll have to do it.
Why? I'm interested in that because that's a really bold opinion.
I don't see how we can have another 20 years of the high street office setup in its current form and for the consumer to accept that. I think the benefits of self-employed agency for the consumer and for the agent are so strong. I find it hard to see how the traditional setup can still exist. And when online came around, everyone thought, online's the way it's going to go. That hasn't worked. The problem with estate agency, it's an original form, which is why online came along. This is my opinion.
Yep.
People thought it was a cost problem. Estate agents charge too much. 1.5% is too much money. So online brings the cost down. That solves it. The problem was never the cost. The problem was always the service.
Yeah.
So that's what we're solving now. The cost isn't the problem. The service is the problem. So we're improving the service, improving the agent's life with the self-employed setup, and then improving the outcomes for the actual person moving home. So I haven't heard any good arguments as to why that wouldn't be the future. So what do you think?
I agree with you from the point of view of online agency, 100%. They were the forerunners for self-employment working without purple bricks, etc., etc. I don't think that today's self-employed estate agency exists.
Interesting.
Because they proved that people wanted something different. What they were delivering, I don't think is what people really, really wanted.
No.
But what they did was prove that there was enough people out there who didn't like how estate agency worked, and were willing to use any means possible not to use them.
Yeah.
And they got damn near close at one point of having enough customers for their losses to to be wiped away and move into profit, and then it all came crashing down.
Yeah.
They never managed to make that transition into what we are now, as self-employed estate agency brokerages. But I do feel like it was the forerunner for it, and the Bruces and those businesses, those people who made those businesses, should be given the credit for almost getting it right.
Yeah.
Because very rarely is the first person who does something different the person who
it
actually cracks it.
It nearly works.
It's normally it nearly works, and then it gets refined, then it gets refined, then it gets refined, and that's kind of where we are now.
It's interesting though, isn't it, to look at the rest of the world and how agency operates there, and to say, why is it different here? Why is it different? I don't know if it's something to do with, everyone talks about the UK being quite risk averse and not entrepreneurial. I don't know if that's something about it. Maybe we're fighting against the tide a little bit there, which is, to your question earlier, people sort of putting down a self-employed model, but I don't know. But I certainly think it's a future.
Well, Matt, thanks for joining me today. There are more to come, including Matt's business partner, and it will be interesting to see how his answers vary or agree.
Being the opposite.
With what you've got to say. Well, it's one of the unique aspects is a lot of our self-employed agents work with a business partner, so they're a duo. And for those out there who aren't aware of Matt and Matt, do follow them on social media, because it is an interesting yin and yang kind of setup in Matt, the old hand, Matt Pulford, the old experienced hand, who needs a hand getting onto Facebook, and Matt Barrell here, who doesn't bat an eyelid at getting 3 million views on a TikTok post.
Thanks for that.
It's a humble brag, I imagine. So thanks for joining us. Coming up in future videos, do look out for Matt Pulford. We'll see you then.